This video is sponsored by Exter.
But it's still your plan, see? Everything just like you said. Except I hung the guy upside down so he'd see their little frowns as little smiles. Now it all works.
Except you had to explain it to me. If you have to explain a joke, there is no joke.
Well, then avert your gaze, Mr. J, because that is exactly what we are about to do. Comedy is arguably one of the best things that life has to offer. Laughter is contained to no culture, no race, and no age. Comedy stands as one of the things that links every human being on the planet. But for being something so ubiquitous, it is also, paradoxically, something we just can't agree on. The inner workings of comedy and the process by how it achieves its goal of being funny is intensely studied and scrutinized. I mean, if you clicked on this video, you at least have some curiosity into what makes comedy, comedy. And of course, I am not the first person to post a video dissecting the intricacies of comedy, nor will I be the most successful. However, I do think I have the opportunity to add an interesting perspective when it comes to understanding the writing techniques behind jokes and punchlines, and that revolves around these two. Key and Peele are ridiculously funny, and while the pair hasn't technically been together for years, it seems like new videos of their sketch comedy hit YouTube nearly every month. No matter how many times I watch Key and Peele sketches, I'm always entertained and I almost always find myself laughing. They are one of the few comedy groups that never get stale to me. And that makes me super interested as to why. What are they doing within their comedy sketches that brings me, and certainly millions of others, back every time? Some easy answers are obviously the acting, the costumes, the sets, and the commitment to the roles the men play. And really, none of those answers are wrong. But I think on a fundamental level, all of the success of their comedy really stems from the writing. And looking at the writing of how Key and Peele create their sketches is what this video is going to be about. With that all being said, let's actually start with the psychology of comedy first. Nobody actually knows why things are even funny in the first place. It's one of the great mysteries of the human mind. SpongeBob can make us laugh by telling us harmless band jokes, and Louis C.K. can make us laugh by joking about punching children. There is no baseline for comedy, and it's different for each person. However, there are a fair number of psychological theories that attempt to create such a baseline, and two of them are extremely relevant for our focus on Key and Peele. The first is called the incongruity theory. It suggests that we find fundamentally incompatible concepts or unexpected resolutions funny. Basically, we find humor in the incongruity between our realistic expectations versus what actually happens. This is why we might find humor in absurd or unexpected videos, such as this.
I'm craving some Fruit Slam.
Fruit Slam?
Where is it?
Or this.
Pa, 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 pa. Pa, can I stab my White Claw? Pa.
Or this.
Finally, they're gone. I can keep these pennies to myself now.
Each of these start with reality and end with an incongruous event. Now, the second psychological theory is really more just an advancement on the first, and it's called the benign violations theory. It suggests that the funny, incongruous events that we talked about earlier can always be categorized as a violation of either a moral norm, a social norm, or a physical norm. Furthermore, the violation must be presented in a benign way, or to put it more simply, in a way that the viewer understands there were no actual serious consequences. I think some examples can help out too. If I witness someone get their ears blasted out from a real-world explosion, even if it's unexpected and incongruous, I'm not going to find that funny because I understand there are real consequences. However, if I witness someone in a sketch getting their ears blown out, that's probably going to be freaking hilarious because I know it's not real. The same principle applies even if the person is real, but we as the viewer know the consequences of the unexpected event weren't that bad. As long as we perceive the situation as benign enough, our brains allow us to laugh. So, to sum it all up, these comedic theories are predicated on this sequence. Number 1, the establishment of a situation we are accustomed to, the norm. Number 2, an unexpected or incongruent violation of that norm. Number 3, a violation that is either social, moral, physical, or any combination of the three. And number 4, the context of the violation being benign. Once again though, I feel the need to point out that this is not the secret formula to comedy. There are tons of funny things that might not follow the incongruity theory or the benign violations theory. But for understanding the writing of the comedy of Key and Peele specifically, these theories help us out a lot. Why do I say that? Well, let's look at a typical Key and Peele sketch.
We need to make some serious decisions about your mother's health. Let's be honest, she is getting on in years.
Oh, snap. Okay, I see how it is. Well, yo mama so old, her last name is Asaurus.
Did you notice anything there? Did anything seem familiar? Let's go back through it to clear some things up. Here we have the establishment of a norm.
Thank you for coming in.
Then we have the violation of the norm, which can be understood as social.
Well, yo mama so old, her last name is Asaurus.
And of course, it happens in a benign setting for the viewer, a video. This sketch perfectly follows both the incongruity and the benign violations theory, but there is a twist to what truly makes it special. And I mean that literally, there's a literal twist.
I just know that she said so many times she doesn't want anything invasive done.
Really? I was not aware of that. That's interesting because it was difficult to hear her with my in her mouth.
Since we talked about 2 psychological theories that contribute to understanding Key and Peele sketches, now let's talk about 2 writing techniques. The first is what we just mentioned, the twist. Within many of Key and Peele's sketches, there is certainly the setup of the norm, then the unexpected norm violation, but the magic often comes from a second violation, one that gains power from the first violation. That is why Key and Peele sketches are often so funny. Where typical comedy writing would have most of its entertainment arrive in the norm violation stage, Key and Peele make that stage a simple appetizer for an even bigger violation that comes as a climactic twist. The formula becomes norm, violation, twist violation. And if you haven't noticed the pattern before, you certainly will now. Let's take a look at the sketch Das Negros. We have our norm, Nazi Germany. Then comes the physical violation, 2 black guys hiding in obvious disguises from an incompetent Nazi.
I'm curious as to how you feel about this catch toy! Jiggledy jiggledy! Nothing? Well, that's embarrassing.
Then comes the twist violation. The silly Nazi was actually right. In the substitute teacher sketch, we have our norm.
I'm y'all substitute teacher, Mr. Garvey.
Our violation.
Denise.
Say it right.
Denise.
Correctly.
Denise.
Right.
Denise.
Right.
Denise.
That's better.
And our twist violation.
Timothy.
Present.
Thank you.
Sometimes the established norm doesn't even have to be normal. It just has to be a stereotype we are acquainted with, like a zombie apocalypse. That is our norm, which is then violated.
These are some racist motherfucking zombies. Why would you even lock the door? I mean, the window's broken and...
Which then leads to the final unexpected twist violation. Norm, violation, twist violation. Norm, violation, twist violation. Norm, violation, twist violation. One of the major reasons Key and Peele are so consistently funny is because they have mastered this specific type of comedy creation. And it's way more difficult than it seems too. Most of the time, we expect and are waiting for a twist at the end of a sketch. In other words, we are expecting to see the unexpected, yet the twists usually still get us anyway. Jordan Peele once said in an interview, "If you can predict where an audience thinks is going to go, you can use it against them. and they'll love you for it. As a comedy tandem, Key and Peele are masterful at not only creating a funny situation, they are experts in staying in the viewer's mind, leading them to a specific position, so that even when a twist is expected, the form it takes is unexpected. But aside from being meticulously crafted from a comedic standpoint, many of these sketches are simply well written as narratives. They come across not just as jokes, but as fully fledged short stories. Let's take the sketch Little Homie, for example. To start, we are introduced to Clive Ruggins, parole officer Daniel Tate, and the titular Little Homie. Now, I could focus on the parole hearing being the norm and the Little Homie doll being the norm violation, but let's examine the writing itself. The first minute and a half of the sketch is really a concise opening act to a narrative. Not only do we have our main characters, we have all the necessary pieces to start a story. We have our inciting incident, the meeting itself. We have our protagonist's goal, parole, and our narrative conflict convincing Officer Tate through conversing with Little Homie. From there, we move on to our second act, the midsection, where the information established in the introduction is heightened and altered.
Hey, man, what you need to be doing is get back into some crimes, man.
What's going on, man?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, you should be talking to Little Homie right now.
Yeah, bitch! Talk to me! Look at me when I'm talking to you!
Clive knows he's in a parole hearing with an obvious puppet, but the path to actually getting parole has become much less clear. Little Homie has gone from being a simple extension of Officer Tate to being his own independent character. In a sense, the sketch has character growth. And all that comes to a head in the third act, the climax. Here, just like in any other narrative, Clive, the protagonist, is faced with his greatest challenge yet, and depending on his actions, he will either overcome the conflict and achieve his goal, or succumb to the conflict and fail. Of course, we all know what happens.
I have no choice but to revoke your parole.
What? Oh, man, ain't this about a bitch?
On your feet, baby boy.
That makes 3 acts for a complete dramatic short-form narrative. And as we discussed before, we can also properly assign the steps of our psych theories. We have the norm violation, and the climactic ending acts as the signature twist violation. This 3-act narrative structure is present across many of the sketches, like here in the Family Matters sketch. Introduction with conflict and inciting incident, midsection that heightens and alters the stakes, and a climax that brings the greatest struggle. Still want more? Introduction, midsection, climax. Introduction, midsection, climax. Introduction, midsection, climax. The reason you might find yourself so invested in many of these sketches is because they are just plain well written as stories. Yes, there are sketches that deviate from this pattern, some even completely, but there are plenty that have a true structure that create not only a funny circumstance, but an engaging narrative. But moving back into considerations of psychology, the last component that I think goes into making Key and Peele sketches so well written is the way they play with one of the fundamental parts of the human psyche. Have you ever stood on a cliff or a rooftop with someone else and slowly found yourself entertaining the idea of pushing that other person off? Or perhaps even jumping off yourself? If not, enjoy looking down at everyone else from your pedestal, but for the rest of us, the psychological label for that feeling is the high place phenomenon. Almost instinctively, our minds start to imagine the most dramatic and dangerous events and how they might play out. This is all linked to an even broader psychological phenomenon called the call of the void. Think of times you've considered plunging a knife into your own gut for no apparent reason, or times where you wondered what it would be like to watch a bus full of people crash into a building, or some other extremely dangerous, dramatic, or life-threatening event. This is the call of the void, a seemingly innate mental fixation on entertaining the limits of mortality and social norms. Much like comedy itself, there is no consensus agreement as to why this happens. Some researchers think it's because we humans consider dramatic, deathly circumstances in order to appreciate our own continued existence. Others think it's simply because we never get the opportunity to put our lives on the line, so we briefly imagine what that would be like. All this is to say that it seems as if human nature is predisposed to be interested in the dramatic, fatal aspects of what everyday life can offer. And that is exactly what so many Key & Peele sketches excel at presenting. Some of Key & Peele's most famous sketches take something very basic, like babysitting, and interprets it in the most dramatic, life-threatening way imaginable. Tons of Key & Peele sketches turn their mundane premises into Call of the Void fever dreams. We get to see the most dramatized, screwed up versions of real-world situations play out in front of us, and that turns the sketch from simply being comical into something more alluring. Watching Carl Winslow argue with his producer is funny, but watching Carl Winslow engage in a life-or-death struggle with an omnipotent Steve Urkel is somehow funnier because it's so morbid. And of course, not every Key & Peele sketch is a fatalist horror show, and that is because Key & Peele are not one-note creators. But it is undeniable that they certainly do have a knack for making those dark, hilarious storylines that we can't help but tune in for. Anyway, I hope this video could help you guys understand comedic writing a little bit more, or just maybe better appreciate the genius of Key & Peele. And if you want to appreciate yourself a little bit more, I highly recommend trying out an Extra wallet. This thing is honestly the smallest, sleekest wallet I think I have ever seen. I've been using my Extra wallet for a few months now, and I'm seriously in love with the thing. And what's best, it caters to my near-destructive laziness. There is a tracking chip for the wallet so that I never have to freak out looking for it, and all the cards are kept in a sleeve that you can pop out at once like your 007. Trust me, it's as cool as it looks, and it's way better to actually do it yourself. And that is easier now because of discounts. We are currently in the midst of their Black Friday sale, and anyone who uses the link in the description will get 40% off their Extra purchase. So if you need a wallet, or you really just want something cool, go check it out. Anyway, thank you guys for watching all the way until the end. If you like what you heard, like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to be a real homie, support the channel on Patreon, or check out the second channel for some more casual, editing-based content. As always, it was a pleasure, and I will talk to you all again soon.